there a difference between American English and British English when it comes to present perfect? And the answer is absolutely yes. So today's video, we're going to talk about the differences between present perfect in American English and present perfect in British English, because there is a difference that you might not notice, but it is there. So we're going to talk about why there are these differences and how you can work with them. Hello, my name is Dave. Welcome to Just Say It English, and thank you for joining my channel today. Make sure if you want to get more information about learning how to learn English and learning the rules and whatnot, please subscribe and like this video. And if you're interested, I do offer one-on-one lessons, so you can go to the link down below, which is my website, register and sign up for lessons. So it'd be great to have you on board, but we're going to dive into today's video, which is about present perfect and how it's used in American English and British English. Now, before we start, I do want to mention one thing, which is that we are only talking about present perfect. We are not talking about present perfect continuous. So the rules with present perfect continuous and present perfect are different, obviously, but when it comes to American English and British English, present perfect continuous is used in the exact same way. So there's no difference in present perfect continuous. So we're only talking about present perfect today. So just be aware of that this rule applies to present perfect. So these rules can be used in past perfect as well, but we're not talking about past perfect in today's video. We're only talking about present perfect. I will be doing a video about past perfect in the future, but right now I won't be doing that. We're only focusing on present perfect. So the question is, do Americans and Brits use present perfect differently? And yes, we do. We do use it differently. But before we get into it, I want to talk about the ways where Brits and Americans use present perfect in the same way. Okay, so there are a few that it doesn't matter if it's British English or American English, we use it in the same way. Okay. First one is when somebody says something is possible or that a situation can change. So for example, we can say, I have been to France 3 times, right? I have been to France 3 times, or I have visited France 3 times. Now, there is an opportunity for you to visit France a 4th time, or a 5th time, or a 6th time, right? There are a number of opportunities for you to visit France. So I have visited France 3 times would indicate that there are possibilities for you to visit France more. Now, if I asked you, how many times have you visited East Germany? That would be a little different. East Germany is no longer a country. So I would have to put that in the past tense form and say, how many times did you visit East Germany? Because it's no longer a country. So if something still is possible to continue or the situation can change, then we use present perfect to indicate that this is our current state now, but we can change our number or the possibility in the future. We also use it when a fact is true for a period of time. So we can say, for example, I have known John for 10 years. Now, this does have the opportunity to keep on going forward. We can say, I have known John for 11 years, 12 years, right? The situation can change. But we can't say, I knew John for 10 years. Okay, if we still know John. If we still know John, we need to say, I have known John for 10 years. Okay, we're saying it started 10 years ago and it continues today. I have known John for 10 years. If you said, I knew John for 10 years, it either means he has died or you are no longer in contact with John. You do not know him right now. So things that have a fact that continues, that started at some specific point in the past and is true today, it still is a fact, we usually use present perfect in these situations. And again, this is both for American English and British English. So there is no difference when it comes to these. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the difference between American English and British English when it comes to present perfect, because this one can be a little bit tricky. So let me go ahead and give you a scenario that will help you understand differences between American English and British English when it comes to present perfect. Let's say you're leaving a restaurant, and as you're leaving a restaurant, somebody else is coming toward you, going into the restaurant. They have never been to that restaurant before. Now, we did use that in present perfect. They have never been to this restaurant before, because that situation is going to change. They will have been in that restaurant by the time they arrive at it. Present perfect in the future. That's what that is. They will have been in that restaurant. But we're talking about now. You are here. The person is walking towards you. They want to ask you about the restaurant. So this is where there is a difference between American English and British English. So the person asks you, how is the food in that restaurant? That's the question. Now the answer is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do the first answer. And the first answer is, I have just eaten the best meal of my life. I have just eaten the best meal of my life. Now, in this situation, we are using present perfect, and this is actually the British way of saying it. So if you are somebody who learned English in school and you learn British English, you probably learned that you use present perfect when some action has just finished and you see the result, right? Now, in this case, we really don't see the result, but we know that the person is asking about something that we just experienced. So what we just experienced, we ate the food. It happened very, very recently. So in British English, they would say, I have just eaten the best meal of my life, right? So the focus is on this result and not necessarily on the action. But as I say, they don't see that you've eaten a meal, right? They don't see that you went in. They don't know if you ate a meal, right? But chances are, from the context of you leaving a restaurant, they know that you probably ate a meal at that restaurant. They might see that you're not an employee. They see that you were a guest or a customer. So they could assume that this was a situation. This is when people use present perfect. So let's do this in American English. So if somebody comes to you and asks you the same question, how was your meal in that restaurant? In American English, we might say, I just ate the best meal ever. Now, you see that we use past simple. I just ate, right? So we don't use have eaten. We don't use that past participle. We don't use that third form. We use the second form. I just ate the best meal of my life, right? Now, in this situation, this is where we see the difference between American English and British English. As I mentioned with British English, the focus is on this result, that the action can be finished, but you can see the results, or you know some recent result has happened, right? In American English, the focus is purely on if the action is completed or not. The result doesn't matter. So in this situation, when somebody comes to us, okay, and they ask, we say, I just ate the best meal of my life. Now, you might ask, well, how do you know it was something that was completed recently? We have the word just in there. And the word just, the adverb just, means very recently, right? So when you say, I just ate, it means I very recently ate. So therefore, there's no need to put this in a present perfect form, because by adding that word just, we know that the action was completed very, very recently, and we probably know that it is related to the question and that we just ate an amazing meal in the restaurant that we just left. This is the reason why we don't use present perfect in American English. The thing you want to know the most is that in American English, we focus on if the action is completed or not. In British English, they focus more on if the result is noticeable, if you can see the result or you notice the result. American English, we don't care about the result. Is the action complete? is it not? And this is the reason why I think American English is a little bit easier to know and to understand, because one can easily determine if a result is finished or not, but it might be hard for somebody to see if the result still matters or not. Understanding if something is over is easy. So these are some of the differences that we have with American English and British English when it comes to present perfect. This problem causes a lot of problems, actually, for people learning English, because they now have to determine, is this something that recently completed or hasn't recently completed, or how does this work? Okay, how do we figure this out? And this is the difficult part. And a lot of speakers will say something thinking it's present perfect, but in both cases, in both the American English and British English cases, it should be past simple. So we're going to talk about that. So what is one way to determine if you shouldn't use present perfect? Well, one easy way is if you're using some sort of time reference, like yesterday, last week, last year, or something like that, in March in the past, okay? When we use these timestamps, we can say, we don't use present perfect. So for example, we wouldn't say, yesterday I have completed reading my favorite book. No, that would be incorrect in both American English and British English. We would have to say, yesterday I finished reading my book, right? So we cannot use that in present perfect in either the British way or the American way, because once we indicate that it was some time in the past, even if the result is still recent, we kind of put it in a bubble that makes it that the present cannot penetrate that bubble. It's in that bubble. It has to stay in that bubble. So we can't say, yesterday I have finished reading my favorite book. We always have to say, yesterday I finished reading my favorite book. So that's something that's maybe easy for you to remember, which is if you're using the words yesterday, last week, last month, 2 months ago, or whatever, we're going to have it in some sort of past tense. It could be past continuous, past simple, past perfect continuous, but it will be a past tense nonetheless. Okay? So that's very important to remember. So to give you another example to build on this, if we have the sentence, he has just completed his project last week, that would basically be an incorrect sentence, right? Because we have last week in there. But we can say he just finished his project last week. So we still can say just, that something is very recent, but the result isn't, quote unquote, here. So that's the difference between American English and British English with this, is that the result, it's just not an important part of American English. And that's it. That's the only difference really between American English and British English when it comes to present perfect, is that in American English we can say the action is over. The action is over. It goes in a past tense. But if the action isn't over, or the possibilities could change, or we have an action that finished, but the process is still going, we can put it in a present tense. Now, with that being said, it's important to know that even in American and British English, if you say one or the other, it won't sound different. So the example I gave you at the beginning, and let's say I left a restaurant and I said, I have eaten the best meal ever, or I have just eaten the best meal ever. No one's going to think in the United States, what is he saying? Is that wrong? No. So you can say either one. You can even be an American, go to England, and someone will ask you coming out of a restaurant in England, how is your meal? And if you're an American and you say, I just ate the best meal ever, they're not going to look at you as if you said some sort of strange English, right? So even though we do have these differences, we do have these differences, right? But we don't even notice them when we speak to each other. In fact, this is something that I only really noticed as an English teacher. That being said, I think it is easier to learn the American English version of this because it's really easy to determine if the action is completed. That being said, I still think that the American version is the best version to learn because it's really easy to determine if the action is completed or not. Now, if you're trying to think of should I be putting this in present perfect or whatever because the result, I don't understand if the result is complete. I don't know if I can see the result. I don't know if the result's still here. If you do it in American English, you never have to worry about that. You can just say, did I do it in the past? Yep, past tense. Is it possible for this situation to change, or am I still doing it? Or is the situation or this fact still true? Yes, present perfect. That's all you have to do in American English. You just have to say, is it a past action, or is it a current fact or process or something like that? That is why I always say American English with the perfect tense is much easier, because the trap that a lot of students fall into is that they end up using present perfect in something that even a British person would use past tense in. Like yesterday, I have just finished my book. A British person would not say that, and an American would not say that. This is the problem with focusing purely on the result, is that you fall into this trap of trying to determine if something is present perfect or past simple, right? This becomes an issue. So if you do the American way, say the action's over, past simple, the action can change, it's still going on, the situation can change, the number can change, whatever it is can change in some way, that's present perfect. What I always tell people is that the only way you can change something in past tense is if you actually get in a time machine, go to the past, and actually change the situation. That is a really good way to determine if something is past or if something is present tense. All right, well, I hope that helped you out a little bit with understanding the American and British version. Again, like I said, I prefer the American version. And not because I'm American, because I think it really makes it that it is easier. But even if you're somebody who is learning English who plans to move to England or the United Kingdom, don't worry if you say it the American way. People will understand you. And remember, present perfect is a tense that we only use between 5 and 7% of the time amongst all of our tenses. So you don't want to overuse it either, because it will sound unnatural. And that's something you'll want to keep in mind as well. All right, well, thank you very much. If you are interested in taking lessons with me, just go down to justsayitenglish.com, my website, sign up. If you have any questions about present perfect or past simple and the differences between American, British, and British English, please let me know. Go ahead and put a comment down below. I'll be happy to discuss that with you. Thank you all very much. Have a nice day. I'm going to have some more videos about perfect tenses in the near future that will maybe help you understand the differences of that. I need to turn that off. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.